We ready, Debbie? Normally I ask the CMC to nod a camera if they're ready, but I'll just look at the back of the room, guys, and wave. Okay.
We got the thumb. We're good.
Okay. I will call this December 1st meeting.
I thought it was hot.
December 1st meeting of the Airy Town Council to order. Let's start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're doing things a little differently. That's why we had the technical difficulties, because the folks from the Carroll Media Center, I guess Community Media Center, I think is the proper name. Actually, it was Carroll Media Center. From the Carroll Media Center are here tonight actually doing the filming. So that's why we had a little extra technical stuff. First up is a presentation. Mayor's got a proclamation for Calvary Lutheran Church.
Good evening. As everyone knows, Mount Airy is steeped in rich tradition, and this is just another fine example of that rich tradition. I'm here tonight to give a proclamation to Calvary Lutheran Evangelical Church. Give me my eyes, please. Now that I have my eyes, we can continue. Whereas today it is my pleasure as mayor of the town of Mount Airy to hereby recognize the Calvary Lutheran Evangelical Church located at 16151 Old Frederick Road, as it will celebrate their 125th year anniversary on Sunday, 18th, 2015. Whereas there were 12 founding members when the church was established back in 1890. Whereas some of the current congregations are descendants of these original members. Is there anybody here tonight that's a descendant? Wow, 2, fantastic. Now therefore, the mayor and town council of Mount Airy hereby extend their appreciation to the Calvary Lutheran Evangelical Church and its prominent members who have worked so faithfully and given so generously to our community, and who will commemorate such an amazing accomplishment. Can I ask for representatives from the church to join me? – 125 years. Were you there originally? Present this to you, sir. A lot of paparazzi in there. All right, thank you very much. Congratulations. Okay, so we have a couple of...
Paint Your Town Pink, is that?
Yes, sir. We have a couple of certificates of appreciation. As you can see tonight, I wore my pin as the honorary chair of the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Walk. We are very happy for all of our participants that took part in this Paint the Town Pink for this most worthwhile cause. I'm going to ask Teresa Pestrak to join me. Let's give her a round of applause for all her work. Now, the town has a presentation, and I believe Teresa also will be presenting on behalf of the American Cancer Society. First, I would like to call up our third place winner in the Paint the Town Pink contest. This is where they adorn their storefronts with pink and ribbons and all kind of crazy things, actually, that I can't mention on TV. And the third place winner was Betty Lou's Soft Pretzels. Is she here? Well, let's give a round of applause. Our second place winner was, and I think they were runner-up last year as well. Oh, next year you're going to get it, I'm sure. I know because I'm one of the judges. Reflections Hair Design. Is any representatives here? Yeah. All right. So, on behalf of Teresa, myself, and the town of Mount Airy, you've got a certificate from the American Cancer Society. I hope you handed one, and one from the town. I believe I signed it. Yes, we did. Thank you very much. We really do appreciate your spirit when you do this. And the first place winner of the Paint the Town Pink contest is presented to Hair Impressions. Are they here this evening? town, thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's no paparazzi there. All the film. Oh, okay, Teresa, you want to say, and I'm going to give you this. Teresa's got a few words, and I forgot to hand these out.
The only thing I wanted to add is that our goal this year was $100,000 with 1,000 walkers. We had a little over 1,100 walkers, and as of today, we're over $100,100 or something like that, but we made our goal.
Okay.
So I thank the town.
All right, we got two guest speakers tonight. Delegate Kathy Afzali is up next. Kathy, come on up. We missed you last month, but I realized since it was election day, you had more important things to do than come and speak with us.
Well, no, what happened was I had scheduled before I realized what the date was, and it was the night before the election, and so, yeah, that wasn't really.
Yeah, we figured that one. There
Planning
was
on my part, but so glad the crowd came out tonight. Thank you. I know you're all here just because of me. And I just want to let you know that the last time I spoke at a town, I drew a line around the whole block, and then the police came and took my chalk. So, anyway, a little humor.
That was good.
So, so anyway, I just wanted to introduce myself or reintroduce myself. Some of you don't know me yet, but you will be knowing me hopefully in the next 4 years. I just got reelected to the Maryland House of Delegates. However, Mount Airy was not, the Carroll County part of Mount Airy was not in my district prior to this last election. So you are stuck with me for 4 years. So if you ever need your Maryland State Delegate, I'm your gal, so hopefully you'll give me a call. It is a huge district now. Does anyone even know what a delegate does? Maybe some of you do, maybe some of you don't, but your state government, your Maryland General Assembly, there's your House and there's your Senate, and I am part of the House. And you will have 3 delegates from Mount Airy. Do you all live in the town of Mount Airy, most of you, or work or have a business here? You will have 3 delegates, and I am so honored to be one of them and looking forward to serving you. And it's either good or not so good for the town, but I usually do like to show up a couple of times a year unless you call me and need me, and then I show up even more than that. So not sure if you're going to like that, but you're stuck with me for 4 years. So when you need your delegate, when you have something with a state road and you have an issue with a funding issue or something.
Rails to trails.
Rails to trails.
I've seen her out on the rail trail.
Yes, I'll do whatever it takes to help you and to serve you to the best of my ability. So that's why I'm here tonight, just to hear what's happening. I haven't heard from you too much, so that either means the town is running really well, or you don't like me, or you just haven't needed me yet. So if there's any questions anyone wants to ask me, I'm happy to answer any questions. I haven't made too many enemies out in Mount Airy yet. I'm sure by the end of the 4 years that will change, but hopefully even amidst all the politics that goes on in politics, you'll know that I am going to be your friend and an advocate for Mount Airy, and I will be your pit bull in Annapolis. And if you need me, I show up, and some of you know that for a fact. Who was it, Woody Allen, who said 90% of success is simply showing up, and that's me. I'll show up. So anyway, so I thank you for having me here tonight. Hopefully there won't be any brawls. I went to one town meeting, boy, I thought fists were going to come up. It looked like one of those Japan sumo wrestler moments, but anyway, at least you're not mad at me yet, so that won't come after me.
It's just a talking stick.
It's just a talking
Delegate
stick.
Afzali, I
Yes.
do want to thank you very much for your help on the Rails to Trails. I know Larry Hushhour's in the audience, and I believe you've worked closely with him.
Yes.
So we have reached out to you in our time of need, and you've come forward, and I want to congratulate you on your reelection.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, and I'll be here all evening, so if you need me or want to ask me a question at some point, I don't know if you take a break, but I'll be here. So anyway, nice to see all of you, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Marion Ware from Carroll Media Center.
Thank you.
Sure, welcome back,
Sorry,
and,
we came in late because we were at the Mount Airy and enjoying dinner this morning.
okay.
That's a plug.
The
for
the Carroll Media
Mount
Center is
Airy
the one that provides us with all our video here, so.
Whoops. There we go.
And the ability for everybody to watch us on TV.
Yes, those of you who are watching on
Over and over
TV
again.
have the Carroll Media Center to thank for that. Or maybe not.
Thank you. Al. We'll let you catch. All right, so I'm Marion Ware. I think some of you, most of you probably know me because I have been around a long time, not 150 years, but at least 18. And so today I was at actually the county office building, and they were honoring Dottie Freeman, who some of you may well know, at the Farm Museum. And she was retiring. And so I look out at this. There's many sort of anniversaries this year. So there's the Historical Society, 75 years, City of Westminster, 250 years, Catholic Church, 150 years. So I think that does reflect a lot of our history and the fact that we're proud of our history, and we try to celebrate it. And the Community Media Center, I think, does an excellent job of doing just that. So we are here to represent you and your connection with your constituents and all the things that happen in your town. So local community is our mission, and we're using these tools, which are media, television, now social media, so web, Twitter, all of those pieces, to make sure that you do get your information and your messages out. Mount Airy is a town that has used us well over the last 10 years. So in the new franchise, when we got a station that was a municipal channel, Mount Airy was one of the first ones that decided to go ahead and install equipment and do their meetings, most of their meetings publicly. So I applaud you for that. The only one that's a little older is Manchester, actually. So that was a big step to jump in and do that. And I think that you will probably know, each of you individually, whether you're recognized in the grocery store or people tell you. We certainly know, because if something happens, Monica knows, if something happens and it's not on the air, we do hear. So where's the meeting? So we're trying to expand some of those services, but tonight we're specifically here about the franchise contract. And we sent you, I hope you all received, I assume you did, a letter that was from the board about the concerns that we have concerning the franchise. And that's why I'm here tonight. And I would really appreciate, I'm not going to stand on any kind of decorum here, because when I was first here 14 years ago, and this beautiful building was not yet built, I can remember my first meeting at Mount Airy. I waited till, I think it was just a few minutes past midnight to actually be on the agenda. I was on the agenda and I was new, and a few minutes after midnight, I was able to get up and introduce myself. And I really enjoyed it because I said, "Good morning." And we had started, I think, about 7 or 7:30. So I know that at Mount Airy, things are discussed and questions are asked. And I really appreciate that in terms of your making decisions, whether it's on behalf of the citizens or among yourselves about your procedures. So jump in and ask me anything about the franchise that you don't know or understand, so I can answer some of the questions or get in touch with me later. I want to introduce some of my board that's here tonight. Bill Eccles in the back of the room. He'll come up just briefly and talk about Career in Tech and our connection with Career in Tech. It is a shared facility that we have in Westminster that is shared basically with Career in Tech. So that's how many of your students that are in this region are educated in terms of media, graphics, other skills that have to do with communication and getting jobs in the future. So we'll have Bill speak, and Joe Warzinski, who's there. He is our finance guy, and I'm going to talk to you in terms of sort of the concerns with the contract and about this building and equipment. And then Sherry's in the back. Sherry's our marketing person. She's going to talk just briefly. If you look in your packet, you'll see a kind of summary of some of the things we've done this year, some of your events, some of the coverage, some of the meetings. As I said, Mount Airy uses us, so there's, and that's good. That's what you should be doing. We're here to meet your needs, and in fact, next week is the meeting for all the municipalities where they come once a year, they get together and tell us whether it's an economic development initiative or project that they want done the next year, or whether it's things, when you say rails to trails, I immediately think, oh, okay, well, that's something that's new and that we should be outreaching to citizens and telling them about, not just here, but in all of Carroll County. So keep that in mind. In terms of the franchise, there are three main issues that are kind of our concerns in terms of the Cable Regulatory Commission. So again, jump in if you don't know. The Cable Regulatory Commission is the commission that oversees the negotiation for the franchise contract. The franchise contract is between the governments of Carroll County, the municipalities, and Comcast. So Comcast, in exchange for the use of the public right-of-ways and subscriber fees, comes to an agreement about what are the public education and government pieces that are in that franchise that they should negotiate on your behalf. So basically, that's it. So they're negotiating money that supports the facility, that supports us, that supports our coming and doing the meetings, that supports some equipment that connects us with you through the fiber. So it's a long, fairly complicated contract, but there is a portion that is called PEG, Public Education and Government. And right now, we feel like that contract and the terms that are being negotiated at the Cable Regulatory Commission are insufficient to meet our needs over the next 10 years. This is a very long contract, 10 years. We are now in the 14th year of a 10-year contract, so they've been negotiating for 4 years, and we still have not reached agreement. So our hope is that they would consider what our needs are, they would negotiate equal terms in terms of other regions and what they get for PEG. I can see a lot of people shaking their head. It's making me feel like maybe there's not. Did you get the letter?
Is Heather,
received the letter.
is Heather still our rep sitting on that? Okay.
Yes.
We
Okay.
do have, for those guys, Heather actually
Sits-
sits on that for the town, and,
She's still on it?
yeah, that's why I was asking if she was still doing it. 'Cause
Yeah, I
she
just
and I
slipped in a
discussed
note.
this several times.
I haven't seen the letter.
Okay, so that's one of our concerns. As we start to go through it, I think that we have 3 more municipalities left. We sent a letter originally to all the municipalities and all the councils and mayors specifically about our concerns. We don't feel that the representatives to the Cable Regulatory Commission are really even aware. So this doesn't go, we're not blaming the Cable Regulatory Commission specifically. We're just saying that we don't think they're aware of the fact that the negotiation of these terms have consequences. They have consequences to you, whether your public can receive meetings, whether we have enough money to continue to do the kind of things we do. So they're very serious concerns, and our fear is that it will be negotiated without a lot of us really knowing till kind of after the fact. And this would not be, thank you, unprecedented in terms of Comcast, I just have to say. So again, these are really for the public. They're in exchange for the use of the public right-of-ways. The county, the municipal people basically are in charge of that. So you manage the public right-of-ways. So this is really something that you should be very aware of, and because it's a 10-year contract, make sure that your needs are represented in this agreement. So, one, the facility is now with 14 years, so we need to upgrade, I would even say restore. We are not asking for additional pieces. We went into this negotiation with the CRC saying, all we want to do is sustain what we had in 2000. So we're asking pretty basically for the same thing. We did receive $800,000 to build the building. It seems like 800,000, wow, really? But that was 14 years ago. We need $1.1 million to upgrade to HD and replace the equipment to get back just to where we were in 2000. You need HD channel capability in order for your viewing public to see the channels. And they need a technical person on that committee that's negotiating that can tell you what you will need over the next 10 years. As you can see now, the equipment starts to, right, you're not using the same equipment you were using 14 years ago in any technology. So we're hoping that you will support us in getting a broader discussion about these elements and that we can all work together, and I mean that very seriously, that we can all work together to figure out how we can continue to communicate with our citizens and use these tools to their benefit and to the local community. Because these people here tonight do matter, and they do make a difference, and so do you. And you should protect that. I'm going to have Sherry.
I have one
Yes.
technical question, so
Yes.
maybe when one of the people comes up here, they can answer it while we've got you here.
Okay.
I've been talking with town staff, because we've been going through a Public Information Act request, and getting all the DVDs together and everything else, and these meetings are now posted on your website.
Correct.
Really, what you're doing is, it looks like you're uploading them to YouTube, and we're pulling them off YouTube.
Cheap. Yes.
It's cheap storage for you guys.
Right.
Is there some way that they can be made available on your website in a downloadable format, so we can just pull them off here in Town Hall? I mean, yes, you can download stuff from YouTube, but it's a little more complicated than just a simple drag and drop, and I'm trying to make it easier for...
I think, it's interesting because today we had a discussion on archive, and we've gone over this with representatives from the towns several times. What do you need? And I would say what you need is what we're going to do, one way or the other. So if you need these meetings in a downloadable form, we will find out a way to do that.
You've got them in a
We
digital
need
form already.
archives. We
just
need
don't-
archive, yeah,
Yeah,
and we need
then we restore them on our
archives anyway.
server.
No, we need archives anyway. So we have to figure that out. If YouTube is not working in some forms, then we need to figure out how we do that, because that is what we're supposed to do. So we'll figure it out.
That's what, yeah, we've talked about
Just do an
storing
MP4.
them on our, right.
We can store it on our own server.
Well, that was what we had talked about doing, because some of the older meetings are not available. And so the thought is, since they're out there, if we could just grab them off their website, because they're digital, put them on town server, and then Debbie can just maintain those. We don't have all the DVDs or the CDs. Just makes it cleaner.
Well, and some of these become history. It's just like tonight, when you're celebrating a particular piece of your community. Okay, so 50 years from now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have this. And so you go back. That's what we do with the volleys.
Yes, definitely.
So those kind of things, and that is what these tools are about. They're not about Comcast. They're not about 110 channels of whatever, home shopping channels. They're about the local community, and that's why we should preserve them, and that's why we should make them serve us. It's a very small thing in the big realm of, Comcast and Time Warner. It's a very little piece. We can do that. I think people get discouraged because it's Comcast. Well, people are more important than Comcast. We're more important, and we can make a difference. We just have to decide what our needs are, and we have to stand up and express our needs. That's all. And that's what we want you to help us do.
Thank you.
I'm
Okay,
gonna
guys,
have,
4K 7.1 surround sound for future meetings, right?
Okay. I'm going to have
4K.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
have,
4K.
these people, because they've come a long way too, and they're actually part of your community. Tell us.
Peter, because Comcast and contract was mentioned, I've got a conflict of interest, so
Okay.
I need to recuse myself because I work for a Comcast competitor.
Go ahead. That was not aimed at you.
That's all right, I'm used to it. My name is Bill Eccles. I'm the principal at the Carroll County Career and Technology Center, and I also do not work for Comcast. But we do have our facility, the Career and Technology Center, across the parking lot from the Community Media Center. And the reason that is 14 years ago when they got ready to move into this new facility and they needed a piece of land, the Career and Technology Center and the Board of Education lobbied with county government to have that facility built nearby. Because we have students from our building who go over to the Community Media Center, use their facilities, use their equipment to learn how a professional television studio works. So to give you a little context, we have about 739 students in the Career and Technology Center this semester. 93 of those students live in Mount Airy. So there's students coming through our school who use the Community Media Center, not all 93 of them, but that's available to them. So it's important to us educationally that the equipment that's in the Community Media Center is viable, is modern, so that the students can use that as a learning experience to prepare themselves for careers or for further education. So that's kind of the big connection for us, and the big push is that the Community Media Center needs to be able to support our educational mission and be able to help our students make good professional experiences and opportunities to prepare themselves for their next steps. So, questions you guys have about Career and Technology Center?
No,
or
Career and
our connection?
Technology, it's a great facility up there.
Thanks, you. I've always thought
Yeah.
that.
Great job up there.
Hi, I'm Joe Warzinski. I'm the Secretary and Treasurer of the Board of Directors of the Community Media Center. I just wanted to restate a couple of things that Marion said. In 2000, the last time the franchise agreement was agreed upon between the county and the municipalities with Comcast, $800,000 was given in order to set up the equipment necessary to keep the facility running. If you think back to 2000, you were probably using a flip phone, if you had a cell phone at all. Now think about what you have in your hand, probably a smartphone that gives you access to the web and applications and everything else. What we're trying to do by asking for that $1.1 million from Comcast is to bring us up to 2015. It's been 14 years since any major equipment purchases were made. As Marion said, we're trying to get to HD and get everything digital so that we can move forward for the next 10 years. As the CRC negotiates with Comcast, we need to make sure that we understand we're not only talking about today, but we're talking about out 10 years. And that 10-year period, we're going to see technology change to who knows what you'll have in your pocket in 10 years to be able to give you access to different applications. The franchise agreement sort of gives you guys and the community transparency of government. It gives you guys coverage of local events and promotion of local initiatives. And that's what we're trying to continue to provide to Mount Airy and to all of Carroll County. I thank you guys for your time today.
Thank you.
One question from a finance perspective. The funding for the CMC, if I understand it correctly, basically comes through Comcast billing.
That is correct.
Okay. But a large portion of the county obviously isn't on Comcast. They're presumably on satellite.
That's correct.
Or over the air. I guess I'm curious as to why, since there's, a complete county component in this, why there's not some system to handle this another way so that, for example, the media center is supplying stuff for the college and the technology center. Why is that only falling on Carroll County, I live in Frederick, but on Carroll County Comcast subscribers and not on the Carroll County population in general?
I don't know if I have an answer for that, because we
It's
do
the
provide.
use of the public right-of-ways. So the
Right,
reason-
Comcast swaps it for that, I realize that.
Right, so the reason you have a contract with Comcast specifically is because they use your public right-of-ways, and you, as government, manage the public right-of-ways in the interest of the general public.
Right.
So it's the interest of the general public, it's not just the subscribers. But I agree with you, those are things where people have said, can't we broaden
Right,
it
maybe you need to
so
broaden the
that
base
it's
a bit to divide it out.
It's a universal service, it's a county, it used to actually be county service. So there are other models that may, at some point in the future, but for right now, you have this. And so it's important to see that that continues while we even look at what is the future. There's lots of things right now that are happening, as I'm sure you're aware, at the FCC and with Comcast Time Warner and all this digital migration. So we don't know, but as much as we can predict, let's at least get 5 years so we can start to think about these other things. We do things like value added. We work with all of the community college education, as you can see. We have an internship program. So we do other things, but the franchise fees are the piece that supplies the most money. Actually, Mount Airy, because they have various jurisdictions, does not pay as much percentage in franchise fees as the other municipalities. And that may end up being a discussion too later on. But let's see, let's just see what we can do with this first. But it's a good question.
All right, thanks.
Chris in.
Okay, I'm going to try and make this this quick. We talked a little bit about how you manage the public right-of-ways, and the Community Media Center manages Channel 23 for you. I mean, that's your channel. And I just wanted to go over briefly a few of the things that we do provide on that channel. Obviously, the transparency with the council meetings and the public, zoning meetings. This past year, we had the privilege of being able to do a candidates forum, which was actually a lot of fun. Your chili cook-off, the tree lightings, carnivals, all of those community events that make Mount Airy very unique. That is what our staff and our facility allows you to share with the community. And you talked a little bit about the channel, but in addition to the channel, in addition to airing the meetings on the channel, all of those meetings are streamed live on our website. They're put on our website, you have your own municipal page on the CMC site, and as you said, they're posted on YouTube. Some other services that we do provide that we encourage you to take advantage of are emergency crawls. The CMC provides an essential service when there's weather-related, if you have a closing because of a construction on streets or a water main break or something and you need to get that word out. We provide emergency crawls on our channel. We also put that on social media. We post it on our website. Bulletins about local events and things that are happening, your downtown organizations, if they have unique events happening, you send us the information. We put those on our channel. We also share them again on social media and on our website. The Community Media Center has an online community calendar that is getting a lot of use. And each week we do the top 10 things to do in the area, and we post that on social media. And so we encourage you and your local businesses to go on our website. You just click on the community calendar and you can upload your events right there. You don't have to register for anything. So it's an easy way to get promotion for events that are coming up. And the other piece that we have is our Celebrate feature. And this evening with your proclamation and your winners this evening, that's the kind of information that we really want to talk about, the wonderful things that are happening in our local communities. Those types of events, you send us the information in a picture, and we will put that all over the channel, on social media, on our website, and just share those pieces of information with the viewing public. But I think what's most important is some of the questions we heard tonight talking about putting the meetings on YouTube. We have a meeting coming up on Thursday. We do it every year. We invite all the municipalities to come and tell us what big events they have coming up for the next year, and share ideas and questions. So that's coming up on Thursday. So if you talk amongst yourselves, you have other things like the YouTube meetings. You have some special events, ideas on how we might be able to help you promote economic development,
or if there's a particular charity in your organization that you want to support, or you have a big anniversary coming up, or things like that, this is a great time for you to share that information. We exist to serve you. That's what Channel 23 is. It's your channel. So you just need to tell us what you need, and we will do our best to provide that for you.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much for your time.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for your time.
I'm going to just jump slightly ahead on the meeting, guys, just to, because we've actually got two more guests. We've got the police. I saw.
He was here.
Okay, I'm gonna do police and fire next to get you guys out of here and back on the
There
road,
he is.
so.
I see him in the back.
There it is. Let's do the police report next, and then we'll do the fire report right after that, so you guys can get back on the road where your time is much better spent.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm just going to go, we have, I know I've had conversations with city council and the mayor, and also I've gotten some communications with residents in the town, and we're trying to target some of the trouble spot areas. And I think today's report that I've submitted to the committee is showing a little bit of results of some proactive policing. If we look at, I have the October results versus the November results, and we have business checks of 172. We're down a little bit on that, but I think we're concentrating in areas that are necessary and where those areas have had some problems in the past. I know the Walmart, for instance, we've had, I think, only one theft call this month, whereas we've had multiple calls for shoplifting. So by concentrating a little bit more in specific areas, we've actually been able to bring down some of the thefts. Overall patrol checks are up. School checks, we do 58 of those over the course of the month. And we have the total calls for the month at 648. Out of town calls, it's like if troopers, sometimes we request some assistance outside of the town. That's been down because we want to try and concentrate obviously our visibility in the town. They have had some hot spots along Nottingham. I believe we've, at least from my experience, we haven't had a whole lot of complaints in the Nottingham area. We've been trying to increase our visibility in that area. We encourage people to, citizenry to call if there is something suspicious. What's suspicious? A lot of people ask us that, and I'm thinking it's not just does that person not belong there. Are they looking through cars? Are they knocking on doors, walking away? Are they looking in mailboxes and walking away? We have to be able to articulate what is suspicious. So, police officers, we obviously we have to be careful of people's civil rights. So we just don't want to be approaching people without any reason. So we ask that if there is a suspicious person that, we can articulate why their activity is suspicious. Also along the Ridge and Marydale communities, we've also stepped up our visibility in those areas. I've reviewed some of the report ledger that the troopers submitted during the month, and it appears that I looked for the we have one trouble area up and around the Main Street and Hood Avenue area, and they were directed to always submit a report in case of anything that would happen in that area. I know that was kind of a trouble spot in the last couple of months, and looking through the reports, I don't see anything that had occurred there during the month of November. But we will still try to keep that as as a priority in our patrols. Was there any questions or concerns that I can address?
Just a couple
here?
points. I don't want to go into specifics on hotspots. You brought up an area that's of grave concern to me,
Yes, sir.
down around Hood Street. You and I have had several offline conversations. We'll continue to have them as far as ways to improve our policing. Again, we won't go into specifics tonight, but we need to make some adjustments, changes, and improvements, and I appreciate that all that you've done thus far as far as the hot spots, but we'll continue our dialogue and we'll continue to make improvements, and I'll brief the council accordingly on steps we've taken. I appreciate the initial meeting that we had with Councilman Everidge and Councilman King. We're probably about 30 days away from another meeting, and I want to thank you for a fine job. Everybody feels safe with the Maryland State Police, but as always, we can always make improvements, and it's a work in progress.
Yes, sir.
Crime keeps changing, and we're going to stay ahead of it as much as we can.
Well, I have 24 years of experience in crime prevention and working here at the Westminster Barrack for 12 of those 24 years, so hopefully a little bit of that's rubbing off.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I look forward to further meetings.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Fire report.
All right, for the month of November, there was a total of 159 calls, 92 in Carroll, 55 in Frederick, 6 in Howard, and 6 in Montgomery. Just to touch on some things we have coming up at the station, the train garden kicks off on Saturday. Also, the town Christmas parade we'll be participating with. Our annual Santa Claus open house is Sunday the 7th from 1 to 4, and the monthly breakfast with Santa is the 21st. That's all I have for tonight.
Sounds good.
Will that be the real Santa? Is that going to be the real Santa?
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Looking forward to being in the parade, as always. And for those of you guys who haven't done it before, keep your head down. Those wires are awful
Is
close.
it your first time, Ken?
You need to be here.
You can't be here. Can I use your car?
Yeah.
The new one? You want to use the new one?
No, not the new one.
All right, let's move back onto the agenda. We'll go back to number 4 here. We've got 3 sets of minutes here. I will introduce all of them, suggest that we just pass them all one thing unless somebody's got some changes.
I'll second that.
I got a second.
No changes.
Huh?
I have no changes.
No changes, anybody? Then we'll pass it all of them. Debbie, all in favor, say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Okay.
Can the rest of the meeting be that quick?
All right,
Yes.
community concern, citizen comments. This is 15 minutes that we set aside when anybody wants to address the council on an issue. We'd ask you to kind of come over here and stand up against the wall so we get a count, we can figure out how much time you have. I don't see anybody rushing, so I'll assume that either we've done everything right this month or everything so badly that people just throw their hands up in the air. Ordinance and resolutions. Ordinance 2014-16. This is our nuisance ordinance. This was introduced last month, as I recall, so it's here for adoption tonight. I will move that we accept this. Do I have a second? Either Bob or Chris, doesn't matter. And now we can discuss it. Gentlemen, anybody?
So I noticed that we do have the change, as we suggested last time, so that only the mayor can
Yes.
levy the fines. Other than that, I think it's great, we should pass it.
I had a couple questions, having gone back through this again. I had a concern with section A11, which is towards the bottom of page 2. In section 11, talking about disorderly property, it includes the serving of civil citations or civil summonses. Tom, I wouldn't be surprised if my office serves 5 or 10 civil summonses on your law firm a month, because you guys act as resident agents for various entities. And, I mean, because there's some businesses in the state that we just, we dump civil summonses on constantly. And lawyers do that a lot. So I'm not sure that, I'm looking at this going, well, depending upon who we're representing at any given time, my law firm could make my office violate this.
But doesn't it just open the door? It opens the door that it's a disorderly property, but we're not going to go after it unless there is in fact something going on. And that's the reason for this particular ordinance.
Well, certainly, the level of enforcement may be adjusted
We
according
can
to the
adjust it.
circumstance. I'm not sure this gets, the intent at least gets at, is the concern that your office sends out summonses?
Well, no, we would get,
or you
say we're
receive
resident
them?
agent. I mean, you know, law firms act as resident agents for corporations or registered agents for corporations, depending upon the state we're in, for corporations all the time. And, you know, that's where you serve the papers. The sheriff comes, knocks on your door, I got papers for such and such business. We take them. And, I mean, your firm does the same thing.
Clearly, that's not the intent.
That's not the intent.
It opens
But that,
the door.
but that's,
We don't have to pursue it.
my question is, that's what's covered.
But I would still
Well,
have to
if
have a
you s-
reason.
If you serve me, do I have to respond? If you serve
Well, this
me with
doesn't
a
matter
civil
about that. This just requires, you know, as I got it, it says within 1 year, 2 or more civil summonses.
Right, but Peter, doesn't the last sentence bring clarity to that? The last sentence is,
Of
property
11.
where it can be established that the conduct giving rise to criminal civil action emanated from or is connected to the property. I mean, that clarifies the reason behind that.
Yeah, I would
could.
agree.
Yeah, I mean, if that's gonna, you think that's, I mean, my concern is, because we're the agent for that thing, then it does arguably eminent from our property.
But unless you
I'm
have.
not saying we're going there, I'm just, you know, I'm just throwing this out for us to make sure we've got, you know, we're doing what we think we're doing. I was just, you know,
Right, so.
and of course, a landlord too, if you're in a landlord situation, a landlord's not gonna have any knowledge or have any reason to know that civil summonses have been served on tenants there.
Actually, when we serve, we will serve the owner.
Well, this isn't a civil summons wouldn't necessarily be coming from the town.
Okay.
I mean, at least if I'm reading this, I'm assuming any civil summons for any, you know, I sue Bob.
Well, I may
Or
not
you
be aware
sue
of this,
Joe.
but this is for the town. This is so we.
Right,
can
my
take
question is, have we overreached? Are we going further than our anticipation? I can see what you're thinking, and I just want to make sure that my thought process, we haven't limited it to that. This would include, at least as I'm reading it, any civil citation served for any, or civil summons served for any reason, and I mean, I send those out by the I send the sheriffs around all the time.
Yeah, if we find out
Well-
that your ex-wife has served you twice this year,
Yeah,
which can happen. I don't have an ex-wife.
yeah, I don't have an ex-wife either, but
But
you'd have to be a criminal.
but ex-wives are always serving me. You're right, you're right, an ex-wife has you served twice.
Well, first of all, just so you'll know, this definition basically comes from Westminster's disorderly house ordinance, from which we, you know, extracted. You know, I think secondly, I do think that, I mean, we could play with the language to make it more clear, I guess, but I do think that the intent here is it's got to emanate from the use or some condition of the property. And so what I think this is trying to get at is that if several neighboring property owners have had to, on more than one occasion, file civil actions to abate nuisances that are occurring on the property with sufficient regularity that it would now meet, the property would now meet this definition and potentially be the subject of, you know, the remedies that are outlined in this ordinance. So,
Peter, I mean, the point's well taken. I think the judge of reasonableness,
That's not always available.
true,
Tom's laughing because he knows.
true, but I think if using reasonableness sort of as a guideline, the intent of the ordinance is clear. That certainly any ordinance can be abused.
I guess I'm not saying that I'm against it because of this. I was just wondering if we want to go all the way down to the level of a civil summons.
So you're suggesting we just strike civil summons?
I'm questioning whether we should strike civil summons. I think a civil citation would probably be coming from the town or the court.
Yeah.
But a civil summons
What's
is
the difference? All right, so I'm an engineer, not a lawyer. What's the difference between
Well,
summons
summons,
and
just,
citation?
I'll let Tom.
yeah,
That's what
a
his malpractice
citation
covers
seeks
for.
to impose a fine for certain conduct that is deemed subject to sanction. A summons is essentially an order that says you are required to respond, typically in writing, to a certain set of complaints. And so it directs the person who has been served with the summons to come forward and answer in writing basically the charge or face a default.
Does the mayor have the power to issue a civil summons? The mayor has the power to issue a civil citation. So does the council. There are certain instances where the council can issue a civil citation.
But anybody here, anybody over 18 can issue a civil summons.
Yeah, and the town could too. I mean, imagine the circumstance where, you know, we have something persistent going on and the mayor and the council determine, look, you know, this is such that we really need to get a court order, that a civil citation isn't strong enough to.
So do we?
And that would be, right, that would be a civil,
So
right.
the town could go into court, file suit, get a civil summons, and have it served, and now what's at issue is a civil case to try and enforce some of our laws, for instance.
So rather than beat this to death, do we lose anything by just pulling out civil summons if?
Well, I guess technically you could have a circumstance, probably very rare, where, you know, a property owner or a tenant has not been the subject of anything but multiple civil summons. And it might, in that instance, if you take it out of the definition of disorderly property, you know,
Weaken it.
Weaken it, which we don't want to do.
But remember, there are other existing provisions in the town code that deal with nuisance other than these proposed new remedies.
A civil summons is what two neighbors would use who were warring with each other, against each other.
Sure.
I just think it
Whether there's
opens
any-
the door.
Whether there's any basis
Yeah.
for the claim. In other words, my neighbor is doing something that's property I don't like, I go to court, I file a suit, they issue a civil summons. He comes to court and he wins and proves that he's not doing anything wrong. That's still civil summons 1. The neighbor then gets ticked off about something else, sues him again. He still goes to court and wins, and the judge says, yes, you're doing nothing wrong, it's fine. You're now at civil summons number 2, just because the guy wanted to go to Westminster and pay us $20 each time, you know, for each issuance. So a civil summons means nothing
It doesn't-
legally.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the town or a
It doesn't have to be.
court or anything that.
No, it'd probably be your neighbor. The town
Yeah.
probably wouldn't do it.
Right.
They might, but
But even,
I'm
okay,
thinking
so-
I'm thinking we'd issue a citation to force it.
Right, so
All right.
let's say that that occurs, but then it would still take the mayor as the executive officer to pursue this. And, I mean, I think I
Use our
trust,
discretion every day. Yeah.
I think I would trust the citizens to elect a mayor that's not going to, so.
I
There
want to
could
make
be
sure
issues
that we're all-
with dogs, noise. If it's repeated, we need to have some teeth to go after it.
Oh, I'm not questioning that. I'm just,
I understand.
my question was whether,
goes
I'm
too
thinking
far.
what would happen then is the mayor would go out and issue a civil citation. And I'm not really questioning our removing that,
But
more
to
so much
me-
the summons issue.
To meet these requirements, it doesn't have to be anybody from this town that does it. It can be somebody he works with.
Oh, yeah.
And I
It can
think
be somebody on the other side of the
That's what you're trying to
country.
say. It can be completely unrelated to this that helps them qualify to this ordinance.
To qualify to be in violation of
Right.
the ordinance, right.
Right.
Right, and now, I mean, I understand it has to, you know, conduct relating, you know, to the property. But, you know, like I said, it's not,
Well, Peter's looking for the loopholes, and there's certainly,
well, I am, that's,
I
you know.
understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
How about putting the word related, civil citations or summons?
Related to,
Well, my question, do we want it to
You just
include
wanna
civil
take
summonses
out or
that
civil
anybody issues,
summonses.
or only ones that the town's involved in?
Right, so let me, so usually,
Keep the door open.
if you identify a problem, you have to identify the solution. So, yeah, if we just put, would that work?
Well, my question was, do we want to either limit it to civil summonses issued, you know, only that the town is involved in? Or do we want to strike civil
That's reasonable.
summonses altogether? I'm kind of sitting here, listening to myself going, I would be hard pressed to find a time when we would need to use this civil summons issue, because I think if it's getting to be that point, the neighbors are going to have complained. And if the neighbors haven't complained to the town, and the town didn't issue any civil citations, you have to wonder if there's a violation if the town's not willing to issue a citation.
Well, sometimes I need a little bit more to issue a citation. I just can't, if it's a noise complaint, I need a COMAR review and things like that. This opens the door. I'm urging you not to close that door and make it so tight.
I'm concerned that we're,
Remember that
Well, we're
the
gonna use
state
discretion.
police can issue citations as well.
Correct.
Within the town. So, as I understand it, what brought this about
that's not a
was
civil
that
citation.
there were some police response.
There's-
right, I think that was covered here by all the, yeah, because it says criminal citations
That'd be a
as well. I
criminal
wasn't
citation
questioning the
if the
criminal.
police come out.
I wasn't questioning the criminal aspects. I just know, I send stuff to court, a big pack at the end of every week to all the courts throughout the state, and I get back a pile of civil summonses that either, and Tom's going,
True.
that either the sheriff serve or a private process serve, and I'm like, is this guy's gonna be found in violation of something, because I've sent the sheriffs out there twice? Maybe because, we're suing him because my client did work on his building. I'm representing a materials wholesaler and a plumber who did work on his house,
I know we keep going over this.
and we're going back.
You're surrounded by lawyers and engineers.
Tom, you know what the goal is. How can we
Yeah.
get there and satisfy?
Well, I'm sitting here, when would we need to use a civil summons? That would be my
Well,
question.
the easy way to get at what Peter, I think, is saying is in the third line of subsection 11, you put the word "or" before civil citations, and you strike the words "or civil summonses."
So the summonses is the only part that we have the issue with.
I guess.
Yeah, I think so. But,
And I think Chris hit that
If
about
I get
5
held
minutes
up, I'll
ago,
come back to have this altered.
saying,
well, I want to make sure that we don't need it. Okay, I mean, Pat keeps saying I'd like to keep it in, and I'm sitting here going, show me that we need it.
Sometimes there's properties,
But everything else in here, most of the other language involves criminal indictments,
yeah.
criminal,
Yeah.
criminal, criminal,
warrants,
criminal.
criminal summonses, civil citations, so.
And if they violate a town ordinance, they're going to get a civil citation.
Yeah, all right,
And I don't have a problem with that.
let's
This is a dispute between neighbors.
Get the 80%, and if it's a problem, bring it back for the other 20. At least you're getting the 80 right now.
This particular property, we have a serious situation.
Right, but
I want to have every tool in my toolbox to go after this property. Right now, I do not have those tools.
what I'm saying is,
It's a danger in the neighborhood.
well, that's why I'm sitting here saying, what, civil summonses, where would we need to use that?
We have to look over the entire case because there's issues. I still cannot do anything against this property.
But you could once we have this, because we probably have more than 2 criminal arrests, criminal citations, indictments, or warrants.
I have to
Yeah,
get,
you've
I have to
got-
get on the police right now.
Probably.
I mean, if somebody's just getting sued by his neighbors,
Well,
I don't know that
we're
we
not going to get involved,
okay.
okay?
Pat, let me suggest this. Let's strike civil summonses if you determine
determine we need it,
you
I'll
need
bring
it,
it
then
back.
we'll revisit it and we'll get it back
Property's
in
been
there.
there for over a year.
Right, we'll get it back in there.
Yeah, Pat, I have no problem with that. Come to me with an example of when we would need
That's fine.
that, because we
That'll
couldn't
work.
use the others, and
That'll
I'll
work.
go
Strike it.
along.
If we need it, we'll put it back in.
So we would just,
As an
we're gonna,
emergency measure at the next meeting.
I have no problem with that.
No problem.
So we're gonna move the "or" to before where it says civil citations?
Yes. And strike
And
the
strike
word
the
"or
word
civil
civil summons.
summonses."
Debbie, you got that?
What was it again?
Okay, section A11, third line. You'll see at the end it says summonses, and then it says comma civil citations. It's at the end of the row. You see it says summonses, and then it says comma civil citations. Put an "or" between those two,
Take out the comma.
and then after civil citations, cross out where it says "or civil summonses." And then, Tom, one other question.
Uh-oh.
In section, page 6, section A2D, we keep talking about against identified individuals.
Where you at? Sorry, Peter, where you at?
Page 6 is blank.
Yeah, 6.
Page 6 says Thomas
Six
V.
is six.
McCarron.
I'm sorry, 3
town
of 6,
attorney.
sorry, 3 of 6. I looked at the second number there. Page 3 of 6. See, issuance eviction proceedings against identified individuals from the property in question, including eviction of any tenant.
Sorry, Peter, I'm on 3 now. So what's
3 of
section?
6, where are we?
Right here at the
Yeah,
bottom.
very bottom.
Thank you, got it. Thank you.
Identified individuals. Would those be anything other than a tenant? Or what's an identified individual?
Somebody who may be staying
Squatters.
there. a squatter.
Subletting.
Yeah, somebody you
Yeah.
just found on the property, they don't own the property.
Yeah,
I
you don't
understand
always
that
have to
verbiage.
have a lease to have a lease.
Right.
Right.
Bob said
landlord.
Subletting.
Right.
Well, that's true, they'd be squatters, but would they still fit the definition of a tenant, even though they're on a lease if they're living there?
No, because they're not paying.
No, I think
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they may not be there subject to a lease, or they might
don't
be a
need a written
holdover
lease.
tenant.
Yeah,
you don't
all
need
right, that's, I'm gonna assume that's what we
Probably
mean,
that's absolutely worded correctly.
that's what we
Or
mean
that
by
lease-
identified
Yeah, and again, it comes
individual.
from, that
Yeah,
came
I'm
from
just, I just
Westminster.
All right.
studied lease
No,
issues,
all right, that's
so-
fine. Okay,
Well, the important thing is, no one can say we didn't look at it in detail.
Any other issues?
Just that one change.
Just that one change. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't, yeah, okay.
So you got 80% of your tools. Now come back if we
You
need
got,
20.
I'd call it 90, actually.
Well, maybe it's 90.
No, I got it, yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
2014-17. This is we are just introducing the the revised and amended zoning map. I will introduce that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it can be Chris or Scott.
One
Take your
question.
pick.
On that one, on page 4, section 3, it's probably boilerplate, but why do we have do we need the language for emergency?
No, I'm not sure why we had that in there.
Can we
Probably just
strike that? I don't
carryover.
want to, it's a carryover, but I don't think we should.
Yeah, you're right, because we're not, I don't think we could do this that way.
No, and
'Cause we have to have
don't
public
want to do
hearing.
that. We don't even want to get the
Hearing.
appearance for doing that.
Yeah.
So let's strike section 3,
Okay.
which means, and. for-
Okay, I will move that we accept it with section 3 stricken. And Chris, you seconding that?
Yes.
Okay. And then I think you were gonna set the public hearing on this for the January meeting at 7. Chris, you will probably be chairing that meeting, because I will probably not be here.
Okay.
It's here at Town Hall, Peter?
Yes. Ordinance 2014-19, budget request for qualification proposals, which is issuing an RFP for a feasibility study for the community center. Chris, this is your,
Yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce ordinance 2014-19, which is a budget amendment to help out the community center task force.
And I will second.
Okay, Bob's seconding it.
Okay, so now that's on the floor, I want to go ahead and yield the floor to the chairwoman of the community center task force, and Mary Beth, the secretary of the community center task force, will give us a little bit of background on their efforts and why we think this budget amendment's well worth our consideration.
Good evening. My name is Amethyst Timok. I am the chairwoman of the Community Center Task Force. I'm also the chair of the Parks and Recreation. This is Mary Beth. She's the secretary of the Community Center Task Force.
Well, let them look at you and get a nice shot. Photograph lady.
The Community Center Task Force was established by the mayor to determine the needs of the citizens. Using the 2008 and the 2012 community surveys, the task force recommends programs and offerings to better meet the creative, social, and recreational needs of its residents. The task force holds monthly meetings. They are open to the public. Members of the task force represent a variety of citizens who bring different perspectives to the table. This includes myself, Mary Beth, who's a lifelong resident and fitness instructor, Bill Butts from the Economic Development Commission, and the Kiwanis Club, Jeff Tunkel, a founding member of Be Local, who helped develop the 2012 survey and ran focus groups and the data presentation. We also had Tyler Graham, who was the SGA president of Linganore High School, who brought the youth focus, and Mary Hushauer with the Arts Alliance to bring the arts community perspective into our meetings. The meetings were open to the public. We saw a variety of citizens, civic leaders, and local business owners came to show interest and support for the development of a centralized community structure. In May, we hosted a youth forum. It was open to, we invited local and out of town, just the greater Mount Airy area. We had 20 middle and high school students who attended. It was a 2.5-hour discussion led by the youth, for the youth, with their feedback, input, problem solving, and suggestions. The Community Center Task Force has identified 3 possible choices for a proposed community center that could begin to meet the needs that we've focused on, but it's exceeded our scope of knowledge and experience, and the research has brought us here. The next step in the process is to develop an estimated cost for each of the 3 options. We are asking the council to support a $55,000 budget amendment to fund a feasibility study, concept plans, total cost estimates, including ongoing operation and management, as well as economic comparisons. The town engineers have put together a draft request for proposal. This RFP will require the chosen architectural and engineering firm to provide, I don't know. We're editing together. The RFP would require all the set above the feasibility study, the cost estimates, including ongoing operation and management, with using the 3 proposal ideas suggested.
Conceptual designs, economic feasibility, a wide variety of everything to do
Yes.
with the community center and the various options.
Yes,
Yes.
and ongoing management, so it wouldn't just be
Very
pictures.
important, very important.
Yeah, the ongoing management's a real important one that we would not really have an
It's the
idea
big
of.
Step 3 right there.
You know, because even once somebody comes in and says, oh, it's gonna cost $1 billion to build it, well, how much does it cost over the next 20 years?
Right, and there's a lot of unknowns,
Yeah.
and the Community Center Task Force, we've gotten to that point where we've collected data, we've put together these concepts, we've had input and discussions, and we can't answer these questions ourselves.
So I have one question. You came up with a number of 55K that you're asking us for. How did you come up to that number? Is that enough? Is it too much? What was the grounds for coming up with that number?
We yielded to Barney Quinn, who did some research, and that's the number that he had researched and came up with.
And I can actually add a little bit of
Could
input
could
on
I,
that.
can I interrupt a second? Are you all done your presentation
Yes.
and maybe take questions after? Okay, you're done, okay.
Mary Beth?
Well, is Mary Beth done?
No?
Yeah, it might be best to go through the
Sorry.
presentation instead of interrupting with
Right.
questions during.
Well,
I
if you
did
guys
not
wanna
know you
stay
were
up there
not
for questions, that's fine, we just didn't wanna ask questions.
Yeah, not during your
Your
presentation.
thing, okay.
Okay.
I think
So Barney came up with the numbers, and Bob?
I'll say 10 years ago, it may not have been 10 years ago, it may have been 8 years ago.
Did they say they were done their
We did a
presentation?
master plan.
No. I
No.
thought Mary Beth said she was still talking.
Oh, you're done? Oh, okay,
We're just here for questions.
Right,
okay.
Bob.
Somewhere 8 or 10 years ago, we did a master plan for Windy Ridge Park. Okay, that was a $50,000 project, is that correct, Monica, 50,000? And they did exactly for us what what the Community Center Task Force is asking for. They master plan 3 or 4 different varieties and 3 or 4 different, they were gonna do it in pods, they were gonna build it in sections, and the cost for all those, and all of that type of stuff. So I don't think the $50,000 or $55,000 is out of line.
But, so I guess the problem I have, and it's not figuring out how much money to do the survey, it's figuring out the money itself, is just to say, oh, 55K is what we need. I mean, normally you do an RFI, you find out
Right,
what
so-
we need, or you do an RFP, and you
Right.
put it out there for people to come back and bid. Here's what I think it's gonna take to produce some type of survey results, and you have a defined product.
Right,
Not
so-
just, here's a lump of money, go do this.
Yeah, let me level set that. So the task force has done what so far has been asked of them by the mayor. Numerous meetings, input from all across the community. The task force has taken a really difficult job and boiled it down to essentially 3 choices. Now, of these 3 choices, Barney's gone and said, okay, given 3 choices, what would it cost to come up with capital expenses and, to address Peter's concern, operations and maintenance support? So the Community Center Task Force has limited the scope of what they're asking someone to do. Barney has gone to the architectural firm and say, given this requirement, what's it gonna cost to tell us capital expenses, operation and maintenance, 55K is a number. So it's been well researched down there.
And it's a rough number, just like with any budget. We're not saying we're going to spend $55,000, but you have to put a budget number in to start. And at that point, we're going to receive 3 proposals or 4. We have several contractors we're going to bid it out to. From that point, it would be a selection.
Right, but just to clarify, the 55K is to study and to come back with what it might cost to do a small center, build and operate, what it might cost to do a medium center, build and operate, what it might cost to do a large center, build and operate. So that's when that information then comes to us, that's when you make your decision point. This is what it's going to cost to
Right,
do
you
this.
define the requirements for a small, medium, large, but did we already go to, I mean, from what I just heard, you've already picked one firm that you want to go to.
No.
Those are, Barney came with that's this limited scope of information for us.
Right.
We didn't introduce that. We would yield to the town staff once.
So do we have one design firm, or are you, I'm looking at Barney, he's holding his pen up.
So essentially, we're doing very similar to what we did with the Flatiron Building, although
Okay.
we had one site for that when we did that. That was a $30,000 study, choosing 3 options, 3 different sizes. What we're doing also in addition to that is a feasibility study to look at 6, 7, 8 pieces of property to see where this might work best, and narrow it down to like 3 properties, and then do the other study with the concept plans and they'll have layout plans and also architectural elevations. And then lastly is the cost, basically a cost matrix, what size, what site you want to put it on, about how much it's going to cost for each of those. And so we consulted with, I guess, probably 5 firms that do these designs, and we asked them, what kind of budgetary number would you suggest? And then comparing with the Flatiron Building and Windy Ridge, 55K was the best number we came up with as a budgetary number. That should be a conservative number.
Pat?
I'll make my pitch for this. From my perspective, we were elected to make a difference, not just sit at this table and occupy seats. This was the #1 concern in the survey. The need is there. We've recently seen a vibrant arts council, a teen center. Mary Beth is running a very active boot camp in town. All of these have been difficult, if not impossible, to open in town. With the teen center, it was almost impossible for me to do that. For these and other community enhanced functions to go forward, we clearly need to at least study this. We clearly have the resources. I think we owe it to the community to the very least explore this, especially since moving forward would help us make a decision on the Flatiron Building, which has kind of been held up in this whole process because that's a potential for a community center.
That's a potential location.
Yeah, and I strongly feel that regardless, I know it's Councilman Phoebus's large concern of his, we're going to do the Flatiron Building either way. But right now, it's kind of getting bogged down because it may include a community center element. This would help us move forward on the Flatiron Building as well for all those that are proponents of redoing the Flatiron Building. I'm very proud of the task force, for Amethyst, for her leadership. Councilman Everidge has been outstanding. Mary Beth, thank you, Jeff, and all the other people that have worked hard on this project over the last year or two. But you've reached your end. You've done everything you can do at this point. You've done great work. And I'm not asking the council to vote for this if they don't feel it's the right thing to do. I hope they do feel it's the right thing to do. Because again, we were elected to make a difference, not just occupy these seats. So I hope you see this as worthwhile for the community.
That's right, that's what I was thinking. Okay. What Tom and I were just discussing is I was asking him, in order for us to pass this tonight, we would have to do it as an emergency measure. Just want to make sure I was right on that. Tom has concurred.
And if we're going to do that, I hate to do this, I'm against it simply because I don't like emergency measures. This is not an
Unless
emergency.
it's a real emergency, I understand.
I want it,
Huh?
I've watched
Unless it's
in
a real
past
emergency.
I agree with
Right,
Bob,
so-
unless there's an emergency, a pressing need to do it.
All right, well then,
we
this has
shouldn't
been
force it.
introduced.
So let me-
It will be on next month's agenda.
Whoa, there's 3 other councilmen here. Don't,
So-
2 people say they don't want it and then.
Well, it requires 4 to do it as an emergency.
That's true.
Understood.
So we're not saying we don't want it, we're just
But
saying
I would
don't.
still hear the other councilmen out. We don't operate that way.
Speaking on behalf of speaking as a liaison to the Community Center Task Force, it's not an emergency. So that's fine, but I guess I'd like to get a consensus of the council, so the community center task force knows where we're going, whether or not the council is going to support this. The money comes out of the park reserve account. The community has asked for it repeatedly in surveys and in participation. So I'd just like to kind of canvass the council. I'm clearly for this. I'd just like to, query the council to see if you're going to support it or
I
not.
guess the next step. So, yes.
I'm a yes.
Yeah, I'm a yes. I think it's nice.
I mean, yes, I just got concerns that I've said in the past, I'll say it again, that the Flatiron building should be repaired and replaced before any other building's been built in town.
Somebody's
my
going to get
concern.
up, somebody's going to do a briefing very shortly that'll address that.
That's the only concern I
All
have.
right, well, I guess Chris,
So
you did
it will pass
introduce this.
unanimously next month?
And did it receive if it didn't
No,
receive a
Peter
second,
won't be here.
then I'll
I
second
think
it.
Bob seconded it.
Yeah, I second
Right,
it.
so it's on the agenda for next month's meeting.
And it looks like you'll get unanimous passing.
Just had a question. Would this be something that is presented to the council and then passed as a next fiscal year item, or would it be this?
It's a budget amendment, so it'd be this fiscal year, the money be available right away, and it's coming out of park reserve funds, so it's like, it's money we have put away for
Well,
this.
do we even need a budget amendment if we already have, is it a line item? Charlene? Do we need a budget amendment for this if it's already in the budget?
This isn't in.
It's not, we're
No, it's
pulling from
not.
reserve, a
We're pulling
reserve.
from reserve, okay.
Right, we're
Thank you
pulling,
for
we have
clarification.
reserve for that, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so that'll be up next month.
so it's not a line item.
I'm sorry, but I got this
As long
thing
as we
about
get your vote
emergency.
next month.
No, I agree,
This thing about emergency.
I'll let you continue to copy the
I think,
comments.
Bob, I think you've got unanimous support on
All right,
that position. It's not
next
a
thing on the agenda is the State Ethics Commission comments. I don't see Dick here, so that means we can't do anything tonight. So, we all got back that the state, didn't like the changes we made, so we'll have to work on that. Any other discussions or comments?
I know you have 2 MML legislative dinners this week. Carroll County is Wednesday, Frederick County is Friday, and this is one item that is in their focus to, that's a priority legislation they're going to try to get. They'll be talking to you. MML is going to focus on this and a couple of other things. Highway user fees and this, and I don't remember what the third thing was. They got 3 of them now.
All right. Any reason why we shouldn't just move on to the next thing, gentlemen? All right. Next up, strategic financial plan. Chris, that's yours. Oh, the screen's coming down. Impressive.
Oh, you mean I have to let
Over
you
the
know?
Moxley bump?
Huh?
You want the lights out?
Just the perimeter, just that perimeter one.
All right, it's going to take me a few.
Yeah, I used to have a label back there, but I don't remember which one it is.
Second, the last one I hit.
There we go. Nope, that's the one. Got it. Good.
Okay, great. All right, so third update on the strategic financial plan. Next slide, please. Usual disclaimer, what I'm presenting is my opinion only. Next slide, please. Okay, so far we've done a couple things. We've done a lot of data calls, meaning we've gathered information about budget processes and things. That's all been done. We've had discussions with staff on how best to present the town's financial data. And as we were doing that, putting together all of the information, and discussing how to best present it, more and more challenges came up to. I'll address those challenges in just a minute, because actually they go directly to one of the things that Councilman Phoebus just mentioned. The master plan's been approved. So that's kind of a critical step for us. The master plan lays out our vision of the next 10 years. That's approved. It's in place right now. Now, my prior briefings, really, they talk more in terms of OpEx and CapEx. What are our operational expenses? What are our capital expenses? But as we saw this evening already, the council's support for studying the community center, as Councilman Phoebus mentions, the Flatiron Building, as Councilman King just mentioned, Windy Ridge. All of these different projects coming together. So really, perhaps we should ask a different question. Next slide. Really, I mean, the question we should be asking ourselves is, what's the town's vision for the future? The vision for the future, actually, we've enumerated that in the town's master plan. I mean, I know folks really don't kind of read it. It's a long, drawn-out document with a lot of bureaucratic gobbledygook. But it really does lay out a vision for what we're trying to do with Mount Airy and the surrounding area. So the more important question for us is, knowing what the vision is, how do we get there? But how do we get there realistically? And how do we get there without putting ourselves in a financial jam? Next question. So, I mean, the basic plan components, some of the things we've already talked about before, operational expenses. We know what the town's operational expenses are, our OpEx. It's well understood, it's well documented, it's projected far out in the future. The fact that the town does not run a deficit is a testament to how well our staff budgets operational expenses. Capital expenses, we have long and short-term infrastructure projects. Again, these are mostly understood, mostly documented, and they're projected in the future. And again, part of the data calls we did, we looked at, hey, what are the things we want to do in the long term? Windy Ridge, Community Center, Center Street, thanks Bob, Center Street, things like that. We understand those, but the question is, how do we get there? So the wish list is really what I'm talking about, right? We know our OpEx, the town does exceedingly well in OpEx. We know our CapEx, our capital expenses. The town does exceedingly well addressing capital expenditures, right? Because our budget cycles and things, we don't run deficits. The wish list is really where that vision lies. Here's the wish list. How do we get to that vision off the wish list? Next slide. So again, some ideas we've already mentioned. I'll call it the pie-shaped building because Oscar Baker calls it the pie-shaped building, and I've learned to take Oscar's advice. So the pie-shaped building, whether we preserve it or expand it, we already know the costs. We already have cost models for that. The community center, likely if the council approves the request this evening, will know costs for a community center. Councilman King mentioned Windy Ridge. We actually have a study that discusses Windy Ridge and the costs. There's rails to trails, and we're starting to get a good idea of costs for rails to trails, both current expansion and future expansion. From an economic development perspective, Center Street expansion, lots of folks think that really if we do Center Street expansion, that means the last piece of property between Route 27 and where the Mount Airy bowling alley is, that last segment. A lot of folks feel from an economic development standpoint, if we punch through that, that will help develop downtown. Harrison-Lashire, well, Harrison-Lashire, again, for those unfamiliar with it, the concept right now is the town's been in negotiation with Carroll County. The concept is the lower part of Harrison-Lashire, what is it, 80 acres or so?
About, 75, 80 acres.
About 75, 80 acres. The county turns into a business park that we control with our zoning, and the 100 acres or so becomes recreation space for the town. That 100 acres or so, that if we do decide to annex, that 100 acres or so, of course, is going to require some funds to develop against some plan. I mean, some folks have talked in terms of a public-private partnership for the downtown zone. Whether or not we want to do that or don't want to do that, that remains to be seen. But, maybe one of the ways to invigorate downtown is a public-private partnership. I don't know if you've seen the news blurb, but Frederick City just announced that they're putting a full-service hotel downtown. I think it's a Marriott franchise. And that's going to be a public-private partnership because the information I've read from Frederick City says, look, in order to do this, in order to get a full-service hotel with a convention center and meeting rooms that will help develop our economic base, is not going to happen just with private funds. Now, of course, there's cautions to that as well. If you're familiar with the Hyatt property over on Cambridge, Maryland, all right, that was done in a public-private partnership. I'm not an expert on it, but I've read that they can't make their bond payments, and the state or somebody may get stuck with that. So, again, caution's there. But the point is, here's some these are some of the wish list projects that we have. Next slide, please. Now, again, the problem the challenge we faced all along. As a council person, I don't know how to judge the cost benefit for each project. I mean, what criteria do we use to justify funding for each of these projects? And how do we know how much is enough? How do we know that the pie-shaped building, well, we should just do the small option, or the medium option, or the large option? What criteria do we use to judge how much to invest in that property? Really, the question really comes down to my last two bullets. Which projects will give us a real rate of return, both in terms of, and when I say rate of return, I mean in two different areas. One is economic development, and the other is quality of life. I guess you don't do numbers with quality of life, but you know, as witnessed today by the folks representing the Community Center Task Force, I mean, they had a whole bunch of meetings and a whole bunch of people show up that are really interested in more quality of life issues in town. You really can't put a dollar figure against a quality of life issue. But again, if we're going to invest, we should look at how do we invest both in terms of economic rate of return, quality of life. So, and then the last bullet for this challenge, of course, is how do we make sure that whatever we build doesn't sink us? You know, again, I use the Hyatt example over in Cambridge. It's a fabulous property. I enjoy flying over it when I land in Cambridge Airport. I look down and wave to all the people there. But if we build something and it has an operations and maintenance tail that's going to take our budget down, clearly that's no place that we want to even be near. Okay. All right. So why am I talking about this? Next slide, please. All right. So the next step, we have a unique problem in that no one has, is it 13? What's the number today?
13 million.
We have a unique problem in that no municipality in the state seems to have $13 million of cash. Now, Monica's helped me out with this. She's queried Maryland Municipal League. She's talked to the other municipalities. No one even comes close to having this problem. So it's unique. We have a huge pile of cash that continues to accumulate, but that pile of cash doesn't help us. It's not doing anything to help our downtown. It's not doing anything to help our economic development. It's not doing anything to help the quality of life. I'm not advocating we run out and spend $13 million. On the contrary. What I'm advocating is, and the council has a draft copy of a request for proposal. What I'm advocating and what the council has asked for and has right now is I would like to put a request for proposal on the street. And what we're looking for is expertise in how to invest this money in our community. Now, I only want, hopefully we'll get some responses, we only want firms coming back to us that have experience in this area. I mean, we don't know, I guess, how unique this problem is. A municipality with a large cash reserve. And we only want a firm to come back who has a clear, concise plan to say, look, if you spend this amount of money in these areas, it will provide you with these benefits. For example, Center Street. I mean, if we elect to spend the money on Center Street, we want a firm or somebody with expertise to say, yes, if you do Center Street and spend X amount of money, here's what you can reasonably expect to happen in your community. If the Flatiron Building, if you combine the Flatiron Building and make it some sort of community center, again, I'm making up examples. I don't have hard examples because we want to hire the expertise to do that. But the point is, we want somebody to come back with a clear, integrated plan to tell us how best to invest the money. Next slide, please. So, keep going. I'm way behind.
I like that last one, Chris. We're talking about querying MMO in other municipalities. We went to MMO, we went to other municipalities, and nobody else, you know, for advice on how to invest it and take care of the money, and nobody else had money. I mean, nobody in the state had cash reserves like we have, so they couldn't offer us any advice. They're like, what?
No, right, and Peter, to your point, yeah, and to your point is I think we're now at the stage, the master plan's finished, right? money continues to accumulate, we're not using it to the benefit of the town. And I think a lot of folks here have a vision of what Mount Airy can and should be. I think we have the means to do that. We clearly have to be very careful and deliberate in doing that. But my concern all along has been just to shotgun money at different projects without an overall sense of where we're trying to go isn't an effective strategy. The idea of this RFP is for somebody to give us an overall comprehensive strategy on how to invest the money in which different areas. All right, so, within the draft RFP, the idea for the consultant is the following, right? Review the master plan, of course, and then meet once with all of our principal stakeholders. And I emphasize the word once because this process could be expensive, and meetings after meetings after meetings don't help us and could waste a lot of money. So we would have the consultant meet once with the principal stakeholders, Economic Development Commission. So the idea would be before the consultant would meet with EDC, EDC would be given the task, hey, next month, this consultant's going to show up. You need to have a quick, concise list of what you think our priorities are and should be. Same thing with Chamber of Commerce, with the Main Street Association, the Historical Society, because they have interest in the Flatiron, the High Street building. All right, Parks and Rec, Planning, Streets and Roads. And then they meet once with the council and the mayor. All right, so again, the end result of this would be a clear and concise plan on how we invest this $13 million. And again, probably we'll carve out X amount for reserves and we'll keep it in reserves, right? Whatever that number should be, right? So, next slide, that's it. So what I'm asking the council to do this evening is, you've got a draft RFP. It's not a public document yet because it's part of a procurement process. Please review the draft RFP, provide me comments so Monica and I can sort of fine tune this before we release it. But the question before we release it is the council behind this idea? So I'll look at you guys and say, you've asked for more detail before, this is the detail. Are we on the right track? If we're not on the right track, or you don't think this is a good idea, let me know. Because go ahead, Pat.
Well, now, you brought this proposal to the council last month or the month before, and the idea was for you to go back and come back with a plan. You've done just that, and I want to commend you on your hard work, Monica on her work. I know I reviewed a version of the draft, and this is exactly where we need to go, Chris, so I hope the council supports it much in the way I hope they supported the community center.
What are you looking at total cost?
We won't know.
Don't know yet.
Okay, because I mean, on the Parks and Rec one, we started with, with $1, and we're gonna, do the RFP with $1.
I don't know what the cost is going to come back, because again, this is, our research so far has said this is kind of a unique problem. I mean,
That's true.
we don't know. I mean, we can try to contain costs by making sure the consultant doesn't have endless meetings, because that's very costly. But I don't have an exact figure on costs.
And that's what this work will give us.
I have one concern.
Sure.
Okay, looking at all the groups that we were going to involve, one thing I didn't see there was the citizens of Mount Airy, the people that have put this money into the bank for us. And I think they've got to be included in that process.
Sure.
And outweigh a lot of the other groups that were in there.
Well, every one of those meetings is public.
Right.
Every
I
one of them.
understand.
So the
Yeah,
public will
but
be involved.
certainly-
But we can do a greater outreach.
Yeah, certainly, we could do it, we could have one meeting. Just
Yeah, let people know, hey, if you want,
Absolutely.
show up at the Parks and Rec committee meeting if you want to meet with the consultant. Go to the EDC meeting if you want to meet with the consultant.
But I think, Bob, would it help that each constituency, EDC, Parks and Rec, Streets and Roads, they're going to have specific things in mind.
Right.
But I think, Bob, you probably want to set aside one meeting where there is no agenda. Maybe
And,
there's-
well, I agree with that. But you had Chamber of Commerce on there. How many Chamber of Commerce members are Mount Airy residents?
And
Well, and I'm sure there are some.
I'm sure there's a few more out there.
I'm sure there are some.
There are actually, there's many.
I guess good point. So let me answer it this way. Not only do we want to have input from the citizens, but we also want to have input from investors. So if you look at the Chamber of Commerce as a means and a mechanism to place businesses downtown to help with the town's tax base, then, hey, you know, Chamber of Commerce, what would you like to see happen downtown that would cause you to invest in town?
All I'm saying is let's not leave out the citizens of
Sure.
this town.
Yeah, we'll add that, sure, absolutely.
We can,
Okay. Scott, Ken, questions, concerns?
Not at this time.
Is
Support?
any support, not support?
Me, I'll wait and see what the dollars come back as.
agreed.
You know, I mean, if it's 5,000, I'm a lot more likely to say yes than if it's 500,000.
I think he's asking for conceptual support of where we're heading, what the study. Do you feel that it's even worth exploring at this point? You put a lot of work into
Let's
this.
just guess.
I think it's worth exploring.
Right,
It's just,
let's just guess, we'll throw a number on the wall. If it's, and again, we're just throwing numbers on the wall. If it's 55K to get an engineering firm to take a look at what it would cost to do 3 things, and knowing those engineering and architectural firms already have pre-built models. I mean, they're just gonna reach into their machine spreadsheet that already exists and pull out their pre-built models. So let's say this is $100,000.
I would say no.
So,
But it could save 200,000.
well,
Yeah.
so say we don't do that. All right,
Okay.
that's fine, all
I
right.
mean, I'm
so-
just giving you my two, you know.
And that's what I'm looking for. All right, so then, what's our plan? So if we say no to the idea of hiring professional expertise to come and tell us how to invest this money, then what's plan B? Because I don't have one.
Well, there's more to it than just investing. If it's just a matter of figuring out how to invest it, in other words, as in, you know, whether we put it in stocks or bonds or whatever, there's plenty of people out there who will do that for
It's
for a small
physical,
portion of it.
it's physical
Right,
investment in the
it's a more-
community.
it's a
It's more,
right,
we already
it's more
invest
than
very,
investing.
very well.
And to some extent, that's what we get paid to decide. And I just don't know that I would be, well, I mean, you put a number out there, 100,000, and I'm
No,
like,
fine,
at 100,000, I would be no.
Okay, well, so let me rephrase what I'm saying then. When I mean invest, I mean, we're sitting on $13 million that's, for years, has done the community, has no benefit to the community. None, it just sits there.
Well, but, you know, for example, when we redid this building, Marion Ware was here before and talked about, we were before this building. When this building came up to us, you know, we were building this, the other towns were like, oh, how are we gonna fund that? Are we gonna do bonds? I said, no, we wrote a check. And everybody looked at us like, you did what? The other towns were like, you did what? And I said, no, we wrote a check. We had the 1.6 million or whatever we needed.
Gives us a triple bond rating, there's benefits.
We've built, and we've, you know, we've added, we took that out and we put more money in. We're looking at, you know, rails trails. We're talking about buying property back here, buying property there. We're talking
But
about.
with no plan. Chris is, what he's
But
putting together is a plan.
Correct, and we're talking right now about a plan for a community center. We're talking about getting, you know, and we would take some of it presumably and use it towards that. And as things come up, we go there. I guess I see that as being our job. If it's reasonably priced, I'm willing to do it, but not anywhere in that kind of ballpark, at least not for me.
Okay.
Now, let's hear from somebody else. I mean, maybe I'm
I
just
wanna
thinking
have
I'm
you
right. I want to hear from you guys.
evaluated. He listed a list of options. Center Street, poking Center Street through, which, by the way, private investors are already interested in poking it through themselves as of last month. However, if they weren't, we have to be proactive. We were put here to make a difference. Chris outlined about 10 projects that are on the wish list in town. We need to prioritize, we need to have a plan. This is gonna get us closer to that plan. Right now, we are just throwing darts at it. Can we do it that way? It's a plan, it's just not a good one.
But so,
I think that's the point. Right now, we're throwing darts.
so why don't we throw a dart, make a decision, and move on to the position we were elected in?
I haven't,
Yeah, where you gonna
so,
throw
good point, Scott. So, working with staff and budget numbers, I've tried to do that. I've tried to come up with, okay, here are all the list of things we want to do.
Right.
I don't have the
Expertise
expertise,
to do it.
financial expertise. We collectively don't seem to have the financial expertise to say, Center Street, punching it through is worth X in economic return. Pie-shaped building is worth Y to do. Windy Ridge Park, go through the list of projects.
But, so,
And when you do them all together, what's the net economic effect?
Right, so in all of these decisions for the entire town and the growth of our reserves that we have we had to do this in any single instance, or has this body turned around and said, what is the need? What are we gonna do? We got the money for it, let's execute and move forward.
So let me address that.
It's kind of a measure, measure, measure.
And we also don't, decisions also aren't made on an economic basis. For example, economic-wise, we would clearly tear down the pie-shaped building and maybe, and put up another one.
It's based on
Maybe.
the needs of the people.
Maybe.
No, economically, we would, because it doesn't, I mean, we had the engineer, we got the studies on that, but there's a political / emotional side to it.
This is story,
which
and some of
changes
these
the
things may
equation.
be a drain, and we need to identify the drains. If you
You
put
know.
in the skate park as your drain.
So the,
I
Yeah,
think
right, it's a drain.
paying-
But
I
let
think
me-
paying
let me-
money to find out
right, but
if
let me hear,
something's a
let me
drain
hear
or
what
not a
Peter,
drain.
let me hear what Peter just said. There's a political decision. So what you do when you do a comprehensive study like this, they come back with the facts and figures. It's the council that makes the political decision how to proceed. But Scott, to your point, what have we done with this 13 million bucks since we've been on council?
We've not, since I've been on the council, we've lowered the citizens' taxes.
And we've actually grown the amount of money that we have available to us to take
Yeah.
on these projects that we have for a wish list. What we have not done to date is out of that list of projects that you have said, okay, we're gonna do Center Street and that's one we're gonna do.
And if we
Let's
end up
move.
having to pay the rain
Or we're
tax,
gonna do
we
the
can
Flatiron
write a
building,
check.
or we have to rebuild the whole water infrastructure.
Correct, we've done those things. We've just finished laying pipe from end of town to end of town.
We
and
rebuilt
state just
the
redid the
maintenance
road.
That was a
building,
capital
we-
project that we
Those
already know
are- those
about.
are capital
Chris
projects.
brought up
Correct.
wish list, things
Those are
that benefit the
capital
community.
projects
These
that-
things we had to do. That pipe we had to do.
So
That's a
we-
normal maintenance item.
So we have a Flatiron building that's getting ready to fall apart.
That's a maintenance item too, but.
But we have money to fix it.
Right.
We have to just decide how we're gonna do it. Like I said, Chris, for me, it's a matter of that dollars, I don't have a problem with it, but not at those kind of dollars.
Okay.
Well, we know if it comes back at that kind of dollars, it may not have support. I would just urge the council to look hard and see if they have a plan B.
Well, actually, I'll do this instead. So send me the comments. We'll tune up the RFP, we'll put it on the street. Assuming we get responses, if the responses are above what the council is willing to spend, then I will challenge the council to take action, put a plan in place as an alternate. Because that will be my challenge to the council. And if we decide when the study comes back, that's too much money, that's fine. We owe it to the town then to enumerate how we're going to, what we're gonna do with this money other than sit on it. So that's fine. Okay, thanks.
Agreed.
Good
Thanks,
job,
Chris.
council members.
That's-
Very good
Thanks,
job.
Chris.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we've got a PWA, Mount Airy Eye Care, 1507 South Main Street. Tom,
Okay.
anything out of the ordinary in this?
No. This is fairly standard, if I recall. Just check one thing.
Yeah, most of these PWAs are pretty much
Yeah.
boilerplate.
Very standard.
All right, I will move, we accept the PWA on 1507 South Main Street, Mount Airy Eye Care. I saw a second from Chris up first. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, up next is 7 East Ridgeville Boulevard. Tom, anything on this one?
I do not believe, no, I believe this is likewise fairly standard.
And Barney, if you know of something odd in one of these, let us know. I mean,
It's another standard one.
it's just standard boilerplate that everybody gets.
Yep.
I will move, we accept it, Scott's already seconding it, so
Make it
all in
easy.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next up, Twin Arch Industrial Lot 7.
Which, Barney, is this the self-storage?
Yes,
Yes, and we removed the one issue that was,
that's correct.
yeah, there was one non-standard thing in here which was removed. That was the road dollars based on car traffic.
Okay.
which basically now makes this a standard PWA. So I will move we accept the Twin Arch Industrial Lot 7 PWA. I got a second from Ken.
Ken did it.
Ken's turn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. We've got reduction in bonding for the Wildwood Park Stormwater Management Pond.
Barney, I got a question on that one. Wildwood Park, I think it was the last planning commission meeting, the mountain was mentioned. Isn't there a gigantic pile of dirt in Wildwood Park?
Over by section, what would be
Section
section
6?
7,
Is it a-
behind section 6.
It's in what section?
It's actually
7, but behind
the
6.
one that's not approved yet.
Well, they haven't built there yet.
Right, they haven't built it yet.
It's in the construction
Do
area.
we have any concerns about it just was mentioned at planning commission meeting. Do we have any
I
concerns
remember
about
hearing
that?
about it.
That mountain of dirt that was temporary but permanent now?
Well, when planning lets them build over there, they'll clear the dirt.
I think Mr. Berman's in the audience.
Yeah. Any concerns, Barney?
I don't have concerns. People have mentioned it because it's just a large pile of dirt it's
Okay.
stabilized. I mean, there's grass on it.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I was over in the senior community yesterday, and nothing.
It was just mentioned at planning, so, all right.
They talked about you, Mr. Berman.
This is like my civil summons question.
We've got the amount requested for release is $5,000. The recommendation is for release of $5,000. My understanding that the county has said that they've done what they're supposed to do on the stormwater management pond, so I will move that we release as recommended. Bob is seconding. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Reduction bonding, Twin Ridge Auto Landscaping.
You're gonna address this one, right?
Oh, I've got, yeah.
Request,
We'll talk about it.
request to be released is $11,839.30. That is also the amount that is recommended for release. I will move we release as recommended. Got a second from Scott. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, just a quick one from me, email policy discussion. Debbie's been dealing with these PWA requests recently, and they have been voluminous. I'm sorry, PIA. I've just said, you're right, PWA. I got PWA in my head. PIA requests, and there's been a lot that's been provided, and not only this time, but with PIA requests in the past, and not with anyone who's here, but we've had issues where people have basically, who are supposed to turn stuff over, have basically just said, oh, I don't have anything. All right, even though, like, we all know they do, because we have, email chains that they were involved in, that they're on, so they, should have them, but they just don't want to bother with it, they don't want to deal with it. Years ago, when we started out having emails for the council members, town had no systematic email system. The town staff just had random emails all over the place. They used their personal ones. I'm wondering whether or not what we need to do at this point is actually have the town assign council members email addresses at MountAiryMD, I guess it's .org or .com, .org, MountAiry, and have the town assign us email addresses that will be stored on our server. And that way, when these PWA requests come up, town staff can go into what our public email address is and just get the data. And when somebody moves off the council, we still have the data.
And you can archive it, I agree.
Yeah, we can archive
From an
it.
efficiency point of view, that's the way to go.
Yep.
Obviously, the mayor is, I wanted to have, definitely have the mayor here because that kind of fits into where the mayor would have to instruct staff that we need to move down that path. So, and Tom, I'm not sure if there's any legal issues with the emails being public, so I thought if we were all here, we could all just kind of bounce it around a little, and it seemed to me like a good idea.
All we need to do is set up a mail server here. It's very easy.
How?
Well, I think towns, we probably have, town staff's already.
It's
using one,
easy.
so-
They gotta
It's easy to
exchange-
do.
They gotta exchange on a domain.
But people are still going to use their private email.
Well, we use our, I'll still have my own personal private email, but we will start shifting all official council business to our council emails. When new council members come on, that will be their only one that they've ever had.
I'd like to think about it. It's a good idea.
All right.
I wouldn't make a decision tonight.
That's it. Well, I would suggest you talk to Lee about
I'll be
it,
reaching
our
out.
guy. And
Yeah,
and
I'll
Tom, if
reach
you have
out.
any I can't think of any legal qualms, but if you do, certainly pass it on. But it sounds to me like the council thinks
Oh, yeah.
it's
It
probably a
merits,
good idea.
it merits, yeah.
So I guess look at it. And that was all. I just
We'll look
wanted to
at it.
float that idea out there because I was going through this frustration with Debbie, you know, and oh, well, they can't get it, they won't give it, you know, and we've been down this road. I remember even going into a phone that the town issued once to get emails off of the phone from somebody else.
Yeah,
We just,
well, if we're, again, we're conducting official business, it should be on official resources. And anything, all of our emails are subject to PIA. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're all, yeah, I mean.
yeah. I mean, I know that I printed out at least a whole copy or pack of paper on my printer
I just
in
want
my
to make sure
office.
we can legislate that. I just don't know that you can. I'd just like to check it out.
It's just a town resource. If the town ends up providing the email
town will
server to a
just-
council person,
You can do it voluntarily, but I think we're going for a little bit more than that.
Well, you would still have to instruct them to set up email stuff for us.
I think, well, so the council can set policy.
That's why I want to find out
certainly
if you can
rules.
legislate.
The council-
Yeah, we could set that rule.
We can set that rule and, you know, again, to be open and transparent,
Well,
we should do it.
Let's let
And
the mayor think about it.
Yeah,
and come
let's-
back to us.
I-
I just look at all the pros
We've
and
been
cons. It sounds
existing
good.
this way for a while,
It
but
sounds good. Let's
Yeah.
look at all the pros and cons and
Pass it
whether it
around.
can be
For
legislated.
what length of time are we required to keep these emails?
well, the town would always keep it, so whatever they want to keep it for, they'll
But
keep it for.
but is there a law requirement that we maintain them for 1 year, 5 years?
No, I'm not aware
Was it
of
3?
That's a good question. Depends on the email.
But one of the, you know, very frankly, one of,
Should have gone away as soon as I hit enter.
very frankly, one of the problems we've had in responding to PIAs is going, many times these requests go back many years, and so now you're going back to former council people or former officials on a commission. And so you've got to go back to request from them whatever emails they may have sent or received in an official way. And, you know, their
What
length
obligation do they
of,
have? Yeah.
you know, the length of time that, you know, their emails are saved back to is
Right.
not uniform.
Right.
So that's been difficult. I mean, it is what it is, but it would be a lot easier if, you know, there were one source for official business.
So
At least for the mayor and the council.
Right.
Right.
So I'd suggest, let's just leave it on the agenda and.
We'll do
and-
some research.
about
I
it.
think it's a
Yeah,
great idea.
think about it.
Let's research all the
Yeah,
pros
And
and
it
cons.
sounds like nobody has a big issue with it, so we'll see if it works for us.
Not at all.
All right, next up, existing site conditions. Chris, this was you, planning commission requirements for mitigation.
Yeah, this is just for discussion for council's information. Something I've noticed on the planning commission, it happened last meeting. Planning,
Please walk very carefully.
yes, thanks.
Bob and I already checked it out.
Thanks, and Bob will help me with the discussion. Members on the planning commission they have the power to essentially torpedo a project. And we had a particular case where the planning commission felt that a particular pole that is in the ground has to be moved. Now, town staff, the town engineer recommends the pole be moved. We get that, and that's good. That's a good recommendation. But from the planning commission perspective, there are a few members that said, yeah, that's fine, let's just move the pole, period, end of sentence. Now, the problem is the cost of moving this pole, which has been there since 1930. Yeah, it's been there a long time.
I know what you're talking about.
Now.
Ken would know.
His initials are carved in it.
I moved here in 80, well, I moved here in 92, and it was there then.
It was there when I was born.
So, the challenge is this. There were folks in the planning commission just demanding this pole be removed without any, look, it's got to be moved, period, end of sentence. Well, traffic regulations say it has to be moved. Well, this pole's been here since 1930, whatever. And the cost to move the pole is potentially a deal breaker. And
My problem is they want this poor businessman to do it, who just happens to have a pole in front of his property.
correct. And
And a lot of money.
right. And the issue is folks just throwing out regulations without any thought or concern about what that regulation will do to business development. Yeah, I get the pole should be moved, and it's nice to move that. But, we can't economically do everything. We can't economically protect against every certain aspect. Bob's got some thoughts.
And then there's some added problems to it, because when the property developed right next door, well, they went fiber optic and they buried right to that pole, okay? Now, this gentleman's not gonna have fiber optic. It comes to the pole, and he's gonna have to pay to move it. And so it could become an expensive proposition. On economic development, we're always looking for something, answers to these questions, how we can help, how we can get rid of this, Mount Airy doesn't really like business type of stigma that we've had.
That's generally spread by businesses that didn't get their projects approved.
Well, you're right, they're the only ones who would have that feeling.
So I would just like to throw something out, see if it sticks to the wall. I had an idea that instead of approaching this in a regulatory fashion, that, we did something here at the table that required us to vote on something or not vote on something, and we still may want to have that option, okay? But maybe we can set up a small fund, and it's got to be done in a particular way. Barney and I talked a little bit about it. I think Chris and I talked, you and I talked. I've talked to a couple of people about it, and it's an idea where we could set up a small fund to help some of these business owners they're reclaiming property. What's happening, this is an old building, it's burnt out, okay? It's going to be a wonderful piece of property now, okay? But, we're adding $50,000, $100,000 to move these poles, depending on how much it costs.
And the guy doesn't need to move the poles to develop the property, is my understanding.
No, and worse.
It's purely, we think
Well,
they'd be nice moves.
it becomes a safety
Yes.
issue if you don't.
Okay.
Yeah, can we clarify something? That was a staff recommendation.
Yes, it
Right.
was.
So let's clarify, it wasn't
And
just planning
nobody's-
torpedo.
Nobody's fighting
It was
against.
a staff recommendation over a
Right.
year ago.
But what maybe we could develop some kind of a small
But I'm
fund
forward, Chris. I just
where
wanna
we long-term loan money into PWAs to help these businesses. We're gonna have to be creative about it, because
You don't want to call it a big stick.
if helping somebody move a pole is a lot different than spending $5 million to upgrade Twin Arch Crossing or Twin Arch Road so that, it'll meet an upgraded standard.
There's a fund there.
So,
Well, the red
there's
pen was
a
next.
lot of things, but is anybody even willing to investigate this? I mean, I'll take the lead, I'll talk to EDC, and we'll see if we can't come up
And
with
the
something.
condition would be, sorry, Scott, the condition would be
It's not big enough.
the condition would be existing properties that are being rehabbed.
Right, or infill and that kind of stuff.
Right, infill, because the challenge here is, it's a property that, has been there for a long, long time. Things have developed around it. Why are you gonna blame that
Him.
property? Why are you gonna blame him?
Place a penalty on a single guy.
And
All
it's a
right,
small
let's-
investor.
Let's get to Mr. Red Pen.
So first I want to commemorate the fact that EDC and planning are both working together on a problem.
Right.
I think we need to immortalize that. But to that vein, also, Councilman
why I put 'em
Everett
together.
brought up the fact of wish list. Well, we have funds. Okay, and if you're talking a portion there of funds, and this is for the beautification and benefit of our citizens and the safety, then I don't see why we can't take a portion of that therein to improve the town's
And Bob will put
operations.
regulations, I'll study what kind of regulations, what
Yeah, I mean,
stipulations.
Barney-
there'll have to be
Barney-
some-
Well, I think there
Barney
needs,
opened mine.
it's not just a give-all, where it's like, hey,
Yeah, we're
man,
not
something
gonna
we
hand
do
out
it.
money.
But if
Right.
it's to benefit the town, if it's, fixing something, whether, over time, things have changed, and it's not incumbent upon
I mean,
the
my
individual.
frustration during this meeting and was, the planning commission just said, look, it's gotta be moved. Well, wait a minute, you can't just torpedo a small investor and chase them away because you've decided this has gotta be moved.
They didn't.
It's a staff recommendation.
Staff
It was
made a recommendation.
sound recommendation.
Because I
However,
came from planning,
your
they don't
point is well
torpedo
taken,
everything.
but I would stop using the inflammatory term torpedo.
Thank you.
Okay.
I find that a bit
Ken,
inflammatory.
you got anything?
That's right.
Is it a deal breaker whether these poles are moved, whether the project goes forward or not?
The project could go forward with the poles there, I believe.
It could, okay, and it could, but you would
I mean,
have a
is it-
situation now where the pole would be even more exposed than it is now. Right now, it's kind of in line with the building. Once this building and enough parking and all this stuff gets done there, you will have a pole sitting out there, that is already, anybody who uses Bank of America, okay, this pole is a problem. Okay, it's a problem. And
Should have, yeah.
Can it
Well,
get
the
lower?
problem is, it moving the pole is, my understanding, isn't it like $30,000 or something,
Fiber optic.
right?
It's John right there, how much is it?
But regardless if it's this pole or something else, this is the basis for
Right.
something
That's-
bigger.
right, but
I
this-
encourage you two to work
Yeah.
together and come back with
Yeah,
something.
well, I look at this no differently than I would say if the town were to come along and say, well, you know, and people say this, we don't like the poles going down Main Street, so we want to put it all underground. And everybody who's on Main Street, you know, and they come to me, to my business, and say, okay, well, we're gonna put it underground in front of yours, so it's gonna be $50,000, you're just gonna have to absorb that. Or if the town had said that to me when I was developing my property, because I rehabbed my building. I took over an old beat-up building, rehabbed it, turned it into, you know, commercial space. And there's a telephone pole out front. Yeah, it's ugly. I guess it arguably blocks the sidewalk, but it's been there since they brought electricity in. You can see it in the ancient pictures from 100 years ago. If you'd come to me and said, oh, move that. You came to me and said, you know, okay, move that. To develop your property, you're going to have to pay this extra $30,000, $40,000. I'd say, you know, you're nuts. I don't have that kind of extra money.
Yeah,
This is kind of an evolution. You know, Chris and I were talking. He had his idea, and I thought I had a better.
Kathy, you want to speak? What, come on up to the pole, please. I mean, up to the podium. We're thinking of poles. Come to the pole. You know, come on. She's used to going to the polls.
I didn't really, I just wanted to make a comment before I left, and thank you, and I know everyone's getting tired, and thank you for humoring me. First of all, congratulations. The fact that you have 13 million in the bank, I go to a lot of town meetings, so congratulations, that's pretty amazing. I did want to say that one of the first things on the governor's agenda, and we do not have a written agenda from our new governor yet, but the highway user revenue is huge on the agenda. I will not be at these MML dinners, unfortunately. I have other plans for those nights, but that's going to be a big issue coming in the new administration. So just hang on to your hats for that, because I think we're going to see some big changes for towns and local municipalities.
Good.
So that was kind of it. The other thing was the public-private partnerships. I would tread lightly. The issue in Frederick County, in Frederick City, that public-private partnership issue is not written in stone, and it has not been decided. The delegation is being heavily lobbied. There are some of us who have not decided if that's such a good idea. And the issue of Cambridge and the Hyatt is a huge issue, and oftentimes the taxpayer is left holding the bag. And so I will have you look to your step 3, your ongoing management and I know that you know that, and you wouldn't have 13 million in the bank if you did not tread lightly. So congratulations on that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Continue
Thank
your
you.
meeting. Good night,
Thanks
and
for
we will
coming
see
out.
you all very soon.
So my 2 cents on it is, you know, if the town wants the poles underground, well, the town should pick up the tab for putting the poles underground. And same thing in this situation. The guy doesn't need to move the pole to develop his property. He can develop it with the pole there. You know, it's a small property. It's not like he's got an extra $30,000, $40,000 laying around. If we want the pole moved, then, you know, we should probably raise.
You need to take it on a
So I would say
case-by-case
yes.
basis.
It's going to need to be on a case-by-case basis, but yeah, I think we need to look into that.
Right, okay, and we'll continue
together.
on, we'll continue
Yeah.
on with something.
Just
And
like if we decide to put underground the lines on
Yeah,
Main Street.
that's
I'm
on us.
assuming the town's gonna do that if
That's
we
on
ever,
us.
and one of the reasons it hasn't been done is because the town doesn't want to spend the
Put that
money
on
to
your
do
wish
it.
list.
We'll work it. All right, thanks.
We're almost to reports, aren't we?
All righty. Acceptance of deed of easement relating to extension of the water to the Socorro property.
Okay, this, as the description indicates, is here to accept, inform the conveyance. Again, it is an easement in favor of the town that is not at any cost to the town and is necessary for the extension of the water that you approved to the Socorro property probably 6 months ago or
Yeah,
thereabouts.
this was a heavily negotiated deal by us.
Yes, and the form, I'll say, I've reviewed and is acceptable.
Right, and Socorro's paid all the town's expenses, because including
correct.
the for your time.
They're going to be doing that.
Very good.
According
All
to the
right,
terms
I
of
will
the
move we accept the deed. Do I have a second? Second from Ken. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's move into the mayor's report. Got him running. I
This is
waited
gonna
until
be
he
quick.
left.
It's going to be quick. Okay. Holiday greetings, Merry Christmas to everyone. I would like to find my glasses. I want to encourage everybody to support the local businesses, as they are, many of these businesses are unique to Mount Airy. They provide conveniences, employment, and contribute to our local economy. So if you don't have to eat in Mount Airy. You don't have to buy Mount Airy. Buy your gas in Mount Airy. Let's support them, and again, wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Troop 460 is selling Christmas trees up by Exxon. Is that still them?
Yes, please support
Okay,
Troop
please
460.
support them. That's another way to support buying local. Also, we're going to do gift wrapping right here at Town Hall during holiday season. Buy down here, wrap down here, go over to Lorienzo's, Crying Johnny's, Concettas, Old Town, get something to eat. Don't forget about our seasonal town traditions, the tree lighting ceremony this Saturday, events start around 5. Santa Parade, there's a whole list of events going on. There's an annual business card exchange coming up. Bob will probably touch on that. I won't go too far. Just a reminder for all the commissions that we are getting ready for our 2016 budget preparations. You'll read my mayor's report. The public's probably not too concerned at this level, but we're going to ask that we have all the recommendations in from the commissions by the end of January. The master plan rezoning process will be a hearing, public hearing on January 5th at 7 o'clock. Remember, snow emergency plan. Could somebody tell me how people out there know that there's a snow emergency plan, besides the fact if it's snowing heavy, there's a snow emergency?
There's a lot of snow and trucks go by.
Okay, there's a lot of snow. Get your cars off the road. Snow emergency plan is probably in effect. You will get a ticket. So please get your cars off of the side streets, okay? Mayor's forums will resume. I'll have my first forum again in December on the 6th, and then on the 20th. It'll be from 11 to 12 o'clock. Volunteer opportunities exist. I have no appointments. That concludes my report. Thank you.
All righty. EDC, water and sewer.
Okay, water and sewer, 0.622 million gallons per day average flow from the wastewater treatment plant for the month of November. Dick, Rick, and I completed the FEMA ICS 200 natural disaster training this past month, which is a wonderful study. If you get an opportunity, you should take it. We're still looking for volunteers for water and sewer. I can't understand why. You get to work with me, Rick Blatchford, Dick Swanson. One could be better. Come on. The next meeting is this Wednesday, December the 3rd, 7 p.m. right here at Town Hall. EDC, basically EDC is beginning to discuss the process that they would have to go through to recommend that Center Street extension be done. There's no December meeting due to the holidays. Next meeting is on January the 28th, 7:30 right here at Town Hall. Wednesday, the 12th, Wednesday, December the 10th, 4:30 to 6:30. EDC is hosting a joint business card exchange with the Greater Mount Airy Chamber of Commerce right here at Town Hall, 4:30 to 6:30. Stop by, have a blast. I'm going to echo the mayor's comments here. Saturday, December 6th, that is this Saturday, December 6th, entertainment from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. There'll be several youth groups performing, dancing, singing, the whole 9 yards. Some crazy guy that looks like our mayor takes over and lights the tree at 5:30. He wears a funny hat. The Santa Parade begins at 7 o'clock. Following the Santa Parade, Santa and Mrs. Claus are in the Firehouse Pottery and Arts for pictures and little kids telling Santa what they want for Christmas. The Mount Airy Arts Alliance Holiday Concert is following the parade at 102 Main Street, downstairs under Superfoods. Also, make sure to stop by Town Hall. We've got a bunch of pictures hung out here now. These photos are of the events that happen in Mount Airy throughout every year. I meant to say that. And there's only one other thing. I got a little letter today that was talking about the cancer walk. Their number is 104-210, 104,210. 1,125 walkers and 45 volunteers. They did an awesome job for the 3rd year. Just amazing.
That's for later, Bob.
Okay.
All right.
And I'm done.
Okay. Beautification, Parks and Rec, that's me. I will start with beautification. These are the next two signs that will be going up. My understanding is, at least staff said they don't have to go back to planning because they're basically identical, at least that's what I was told.
The words changed.
We just changed the words in the signs. This one, if you'll notice, is a little higher, the one going to Prospect Park, that's because there's a garden under it. Well, I did ask, because I was wanting to run them back past planning, but, so I asked that. So these will be the next two going up. The Prospect Park one's basically going to go where the one is now. The East-West Park one's going to go in that garden that's kind of there at the front. That would be, I guess that would be the biggest decision in beautification, other than, the usual things. We actually had the Dinosaur Awards last month. Beautification is not going to meet again until the third Tuesday of January, which I think is the 20th. So we will not have a December meeting. Up next, Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec obviously went through its usual stuff. We're still working on the rail trail. We're hoping to have a guy from CSX maybe out here sometime this month or in early January, maybe actually walk that section with him to actually say, okay, do you really think it's worth this much? When you actually walk the product. So we're moving forward on that. Obviously, Larry's been doing a lot of work over there on the rail trail over there. A big thing we did, which I think was really nice, is we have one of our nice ball fields is over in Twin Ridge. It's one of our nicest ball fields. We voted to name that after Mayor Johnson. We're going to work out the actual title of it. We want to talk to his family about it. Should it be Jerry Johnson Field, or would they rather have it be Gerald Johnson Field? And we may end up naming it Park, but we're going to talk to the family about exactly how to name it. We have several named, in town already. We've got Watkins Park, and we've got the Wilson Trail, and I know that the one behind Summit Ridge is named after
Bryson Field.
Right, Bryson Field. So we're going to name that one after Mayor Johnson.
Very nice, Peter.
Well, that was, we waited for a meeting that Brian Johnson wasn't at to discuss that one. So that will be, you'll probably see that being done, as we move down towards signage for that. The next Parks meeting will be here the third Thursday of January. There will be no December meeting, and I will leave the Parks report at that. And up next, we have Planning and Zoning and Community Center Task Force.
So planning's back to its normal cycle of site approvals, sign approvals. One thing came out the last meeting. I meant to get it on this month's agenda. I'll put it on next month's agenda. There's a slight discrepancy, or we had a developer try to kind of get between the lines of storage and parking. The developer was trying to avoid paving in the industrial area because they were only storing vehicles, not parking them. Now, unfortunately, during the developer's discussion with the Planning Commission, the developer himself, the developer's engineer himself, referred to parking the vehicles. So there's a little bit of a loophole there that will close with legislation. Other than that,
maybe it just needs to be that anything that is currently licensed is being parked and not stored.
Yeah.
If it's got a registration and a tag,
well,
it's parked.
It was actually vehicles. They were actually vehicles that were being parked awaiting repair.
Yeah, but they would still be tagged.
Right, but we'll address it. But anyway,
Okay.
so
All right,
we'll address it.
yeah.
And then Community Center Task Force. Well, you saw them here tonight. So the last meeting was about where they needed to go next, and we heard their presentation tonight.
All right.
So that's it. Thank you.
All right, recycling and sanitation.
All right, the most important commission there is.
We're in
Mr.
really
Mullins.
trouble
We
if it
get
doesn't
more
work.
phone calls about recycling, sanitation.
You
Than
will.
any other
Any
commission,
other
that's true.
True.
So, 3 things, make it quick and painless. One, curbside pickup is going to be planned, the next one, for the last Saturday in April, which will be for the 25th of April. The commission is looking at requesting potentially more funds to replenish the toters that we have. Apparently, we're down to like the last 100 toters for recycling. Those are the bins that we did
Right.
mass purchase for,
Have
and
we-
they break on occasion
Have we,
and stuff like
okay,
that.
have we collected any money from people, from ones who disappear? Because didn't we put in, and I'm wondering if we have
Yeah.
money in a fund somewhere? I'm sure it's not
We
enough.
did,
I
but
just
it's
want to
probably
make sure.
not enough to
I'm sure it's
replenish.
not enough, but
And
basically.
generally, we should have some on stock because, I mean, they get picked up, they get slammed, and they're broken.
Mine's got a good hole in it.
Right.
From the claw.
So we need to fix those. So
Yeah.
we'll probably be coming to the council at some point asking for funds because there's not a budget item
Yeah,
for it right
sure.
now. And then the last thing is we do not have a meeting this month. The next meeting will be on the 15th of January at 7 p.m. and that concludes my report.
All right.
Everyone, that the holidays are falling for Frederick County on trash pickup, so it'll be the alternate day that we pick up. We have 2 holidays falling.
Okay, and what the mayor said.
All right. Streets and roads.
I think you are on camera.
We do not have a meeting this month, but next meeting is January 12th. That's the next meeting,
Alright.
Streets and Roads, January 12th.
Monica? All right, Tom, town attorney?
No, just, we have not yet heard back from CSX on the invite, but he's back in the office tomorrow from being out on vacation, so hopefully we'll hear very soon.
All right, is there any other business? I will move that the bills be paid. All right, seconded, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we've got a closed meeting on the minutes, it should be a very quick one. I'm going to move that we go into a closed meeting, and then when the closed meeting is completed, that we be formally adjourned, and the closed meeting is consult with staff, consult with other individuals about pending or potential litigation, and I would say we're probably also obtaining legal advice on a legal matter. That's really a little more of what it is. Helt, aye. Everett? Aye. King?
Nay. I just want one time to see what happens. Aye.
Check your seat.
I got the response I
There's a
wanted.
horse at the table. Phoebus?
Aye.
Strong?
Aye.
All right, we are in closed session. We will
we gonna
adjourn,
make it
we'll just
quick?
give everybody a few minutes to get out.